Okay, who has not done a bucket list this morning? Okay, I want you to take 1 minute to write down, death comes at any time. You've got 1 minute to write your bucket list. And the others, you can take yours out. Okay, so stop. So you have 6 months left to live. Look at your bucket list and see what you want to accomplish in 6 months. So I want you to name one of those things, and we're going to just go quickly around the room, starting with Venerable Yeshe.
Compassion. I have a booty heart.
In 6 months?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
I would begin the process of dying to familiarize myself with it.
Excellent.
To go through the forgiveness and the I love you, I forgive you, forgive me.
And thank you. Excellent. Good.
See my new niece.
Oh, good.
Go to Portland with my kids to see my 2 stepdaughters, Kate and Aaron.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm sorry. We should have started here.
Meet His Holiness and look him straight in the eye.
Ooh. I didn't add that one to my bucket. Okay.
I would like to, this is very lofty, but attain a conceptual realization of emptiness.
In 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
It's a friend of mine said, well, I heard you could do that at the point of dying. And I said, well, you don't want to wait till then.
Let's see, I want to finish up my death wishes, my living will and such. It's kind of half done on my desk.
Oh, good.
Finish it.
Good.
Clear.
Yeah.
I'll work on the death meditation and with the family.
In 6 months. So you're going to go back to Europe? Great.
And come back to die here.
And come back to die here.
Married my partner, Leah.
Oh, beautiful. Does she know? Oh.
I have a lot of paperwork, diaries, reflections that go way back. I would like to sort of clean that up and organize it or get rid of it so my relatives don't have to deal with it.
So you have like the main points.
Yeah.
Great. Leah. In 6 months.
Could happen.
Could happen, yeah. November, he's teaching the Lamrim Chemo in South India, and it's a really important one. He's really encouraging people to go, and it's going to be half of the time at Ganden Monastery and half of the time at Drepung Monastery. And they're right close to each other, so if you find a place down there, you can just walk. That's really.
And that's where I'm going to see him then, including seeing my monks.
Seeing your monks.
They're fine with that.
Yeah.
Finish reading the 3 volumes of
Whoa, very good.
Teaching my children one more time and get them my monks.
And where are they?
One's in Florida right now, one's in California. One's in
Nice.
Well, that was pretty much mine. Just be sure that my family knows that I love them.
Aww. Beautiful. Doris?
I really want to write a nice ethical will. Started one that finished that for my children and grandchildren. And I want to do the Vajra Sattva every day. And, go to the mountains more.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's really nice to have them tangible, and accomplishable. So, you really specified that. It's great.
This is my mom in Nebraska.
All right. Are you going to drive?
Try not to.
Try not to. Southwest Air.
Find a home for my cat.
Find a home for your cat. Oh. Okay. Sounds like there's a story there.
Well, it should have a home.
But not yours.
No. By itself.
She'll be dead. So she needs to find a home for her cat.
Thank you.
Venerable?
To keep practicing the death meditation every day, and try to keep a kind heart, and work to not get irritated and angry every day.
Ooh, that's lofty. Very good. So, well, we'll just go here. Terry?
I'd like to take a run to visit the Scottish Highlands.
Oh, in 6 months?
Yes.
Excellent. Is that where she's from, or
She was
roots?
in the Scottish Highlands.
Is she Scottish?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Now that's where your red hair comes from.
If I had red hair, I'd say yes. Or-
We pretty much have done our bucket list, so I guess if it was my time, and I know I have 6 months, probably downsizing like we've been doing, to not leave anything messy for anybody when they come.
Beautiful. That is beautiful. Yeah. And it's a hard one to
I have
do.
a parent who, my father died, and 2 weeks before he died, he loved garage sailing. He and my husband went to a garage sale and he bought steel wool. And my first reaction was really angry, and I was about to open my big mouth and really download on him because we knew he was dying and we had a very short time left. And then I thought, hey, it's his life. He wants to do what I consider kind of weird stuff. That's his life. And so he felt very good.
Right.
We went together to a garage sale.
So he had he has lots of steel wool.
A basement 8 feet tall and 52 feet long. You couldn't even get down into it. It was packed with stuff.
Ooh.
He loved garage sales. He loved collecting. Anyway, I don't want to be like that.
I'd like to return to Costa Rica and Central America again. That was a trip plan also to South America. But most of this corporal is interesting and independent of my wife, and I have downsizing. It's an illusion. No matter how much you digest, how much you make space for these things, it still seems like, whoops, there's no longer that drawer still.
I know, right?
I've got so many friends we've assisted cleaning up after. And we're leaving later this week to go do another cleanup for my best friend who just died 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
I don't want to leave if I predecease my wife, this horrid mess of my stuff.
yeah. Right. I think there are a few retreats Venerable Children would say, does anybody here have an empty drawer in your house? But I think Venerable does pretty good at cleaning house, huh?
Oh, we do it every spring.
Yeah?
And all year long.
And all year long.
Don't leave
Yeah.
anything laying around. It will go.
Amazing, amazing. Hang on, let's get...
Well, I think just maintaining just as well as formal and just walking meditation practice and just really purifying every day and placing my mind in virtue and just practicing,
Beautiful, beautiful. Venerable Tarpa?
I'd like to have heartfelt talks with each of my siblings, 5, and then work on purification around equanimity. Equanimity is my biggest goal. Tangible, more tangible than a few others.
Great. I put down establish end-of-life courses for the general public. And I'm already working on that with the supervisor at our hospital. And I've endorsed our hospice medical director. I was telling my sharing partner yesterday, our hospice medical director just had a birthday this month. He just turned 35. Yeah, but he graduated from Stanford. He worked in clinics in Africa. You know, his first free time, what he wanted to do was climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and he's just like going for it. It's just really remarkable, and he's got such a big heart. You know, his mother encouraged him, said, if you're going to be a physician, you should study Reiki also. So he's a Reiki master too. You know, I mean, to bring that kind of balance, and it really shows in the kind of attention and care that he has for the patients. So, you know, it's like if we too keep stretching our hearts and learning about other methodologies and ways, you know, we make ourselves accessible to others, and we can hear others so much better too. So, you know, really look at that. Okay, so I was asked to end at 10:15, and it's partly my fault because I really would love to see Venerable Children when she arrives at the airport. Otherwise, I'd miss her. So, so we'll gallop along here. You had, she had.
You know what? It really wasn't that important for her to say.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Since we're in the home stretch, would it be possible to discuss stanza 14? Will we get there in the normal course of the session? Or?
Okay, what I wanted to say was that I can do a brief. I was not intending to really go through those parts because it's much more for those that are working with highest yoga tantra, but His Holiness the Dalai Lama has kind of made it, assembled this teaching in a way that anybody can read, and it's in a book called Advice for Dying. But I saw somebody with it. Okay, so here it is. You can show it to, yeah. Okay.
So my questions would be answered in that book. That's the book by the Dalai Lama and
yes.
Translated by Jeffrey Hopkins?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it is, the prayer is by the Panchen Lama. And let's see, it was the first Panchen Lama. Uh-huh.
A few more.
Sure.
So then the commentary under the stanza, each stanza, is that your commentary, or did that come from?
That's from His Holiness.
That's from His Holiness in the book.
And it's in the book. Everything that you have is totally from the book.
Okay.
And His Holiness elaborates on things beautifully. And I, as I was preparing for this weekend, and as I was working with patients, I was becoming more and more curious and interested in the actual dying state and what happens afterwards. And although I've received a lot of different teachings from His Holiness and other people, I feel that that these later stanzas really deserve a master to share it with you. So and his book is wonderful. And perhaps Venerable Children can elaborate on it in the future some more. Or maybe in the future I'll have a little more expertise too.
one more basic question.
Sure.
In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, is there a preferred posture at the time of death? A preferred position? Like right side, left side, placement of hands?
Yeah, there's the lion posture at the time of when you go to sleep at night. And I did that for many, many years, decades maybe, where you lie down on your right side and your hand is under your face this way. Sometimes they say to block this nostril, which is a little hard. But then you're lying on your right side and your left hand is on your left hip or thigh. And they actually say it's better for the way your organs are too. And I've even heard medical people say that the right side is better because of the way the intestines and stomach are too. However, I had like a really bad shoulder pain, kind of chronic for a long time, and I couldn't sleep on this side. So it was kind of an interesting exercise to sleep on my left side for a long time too, after doing this as a practice. But it makes me see that when you're in pain or you have a physical condition, you have to accommodate to what you can do. There are many of our hospice clients that can only be in one posture, and it is very difficult for the nurses because the fluids pool, the body is really sedentary and not moving, and then the bed sores start. And the bed sores are really bad. They're very painful, and they can get so bad you can actually even start to see bone, right? Yeah, it's very bad and very painful. So it's important to keep moving the body, even for the hospice patients, so that they talk about turning them every 2 hours. And so think about that when we're in our dying place or very ill, and we don't want to be bothered. We're in pain. We're thinking or contemplating something, and nurses come in and constantly shifting and changing you. So again, it's all about practice. How do you keep a joyful mind when your body's kind of out of control and other people are taking care of you? So there's that posture for meditators and adepts. They talk about how they sit in meditation posture and are able to pass away sitting in meditation posture. And according to many of our teachers, they say it's really many adepts and masters have done this. So and there's a monastery in Northern California where the practice is you don't lie down. You sleep sitting up. And I think when you're 20, 30, 40, we're really gung-ho. But when you start to get 50, 60, 70, 80, I think it becomes more challenging, So you do what you can. And I think it's really important to have a joyful heart and really think I'm doing things to the best of my capacity. And watch the laziness and indulgence, but also watch the mindfulness and effort too. So what's your middle way based on the condition of what you can do. So just and I'll see what I can do in galloping along here. I think some of the main points, though, it'll be challenging. I wanted to share, on stanza 7, wishing to die within joyful confidence, as a chaplain, most of my clients, I would say, are Christian, and so oftentimes before we do the Lord's Prayer, I have them do the visualization kind of like Chinrezi, where I have them just take in a couple breaths and relax, just to prompt them on breathe in love and relax, breathe in love and relax. And it just kind of helps them because, it's like even though they're ill, their mind may be just racing, trying to figure out, what's going on, what can I do, how can I get out of this, just feel like you're getting painted into a corner. And so how do you relax? And then I have them imagine being in the presence of Jesus Christ. Just imagine being in the presence of Jesus Christ, and imagine that his eyes gaze at you with incredible compassion and love, and from his heart rays of light radiate out, touching you and flooding your body with love. And this love relaxes you, fills you with courage and confidence, just washes away our fears, and just really in so many ways taking refuge in Christ, So you can do this for family members or patients, that you'll be working with in hospice. And generally, they are so responsive to it. Just to imagine being in the presence of what they've, for a lot of people, they've been disconnected from their path for a while. And a lot of times, it's because they've been ill. They haven't been able to go to church. So, it helps them just connect right there with it. And to just relax the body and imagine all the tension, the stress, the fear, the worry, just washing away. And then we'll do the Lord's Prayer together. So, it's, I think, really something easily adaptable and something that you can really help others with in just helping them be a little more relaxed and confident. Okay, so, to fill your heart with courage, connected with this. Okay, so stanza 8, meditating while dying. So wishing to generate a powerful mind of virtue when the external signs of the dissolution of the elements arise. So His Holiness comments that this is according to the tradition of highest yoga tantra. So, in the future, when you study with different even Buddhist traditions, you'll find different methodologies. But this is where, don't try to grasp at so many. Find something that really kind of touches your heart and resonates for you, and then work with it and become really familiar with it. Use that as your track, that familiarization track. Okay, so let's read the verse together. May we generate a powerful mind of virtue when the elements, earth, water, fire, and wind, dissolve in stages, and physical strength is lost, mouth and nose dry and pucker, warmth withdraws, breaths are gasped, and rattling sounds emerge. Okay, so it says here, so that you will not be surprised by the dying process when it starts, learn the stages of the dissolution of the four elements and their accompanying external and internal signs. So again, let's see what it says here. So these stanza 8 through 10, are appearances occurring during the first 4 phases of death, and he mentions it here. It's like, and how to meditate throughout them, right? So focusing the mind at the dissolution of earth, water, fire, and wind. So wind you can understand more as energy and movement. So His Holiness mentions that if it's a sudden death, like if we're in an accident or something, that these dissolution stages happen very quickly. And if we're not prepared or it happens quickly, oftentimes we are not aware of them so much because they just go very quickly. But if we have time, we're in bed and we're aware that this is the dissolution is happening, and you're familiar with them, you recognize them, So, so in the process of death, there are 8 phases, and the first 4 are the collapse of these elements: earth, water, fire, and wind. And the last 4 elements are the collapse of consciousness into the innermost, or the most subtle, and it's called the clear light state. Okay, so His Holiness mentions that this also happens in daily life, and that there are forward and reverse processes in this. So he says in the forward process, there's the process in dying, but also going to sleep, entering a dream, sneezing, fainting, and during orgasm. And then the reverse process happens when those things that I mentioned end. So you can catch it, when you sneeze. Use your sneezing, or use your going to sleep. As you're drifting off to sleep, it's almost like you're relaxing and you're letting go of that control. And then use that, when you're like in the lion posture. It's like watch the subtle dissolution of elements in a way. Okay? So portents of death, number 3. Number 3, portents of death can appear within a year or 2 prior to dying. So these alert you to the need to prepare, but it is better to be ready before then. And what he suggested as portents of death are change in your breath and your breath movement, change maybe in physical signs, and in your dreams. So dreams may kind of give you some sense of this. Anybody, it's like for me, I'm already seeing the signs. I think when we look at our photo, we can see some signs. But maybe also in our physical energy. I've got edema in one leg, and I know it's like I have to keep exercising, otherwise it just gets worse. So I think that it's not just a year or 2. You just see these signs starting to happen. Right? But His Holiness also mentions, he says, there may be change in your attitudes. And, I always kind of held, and I still do for the most part, that view that you pretty much die the way you lived. But His Holiness is also suggesting here that a change could occur also where you develop kind of disgust with your surroundings, with home, with friends, wishing to go elsewhere, and just kind of this irritation. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Or there could be an increase in lust. I think it's kind of like the elements changing, and you're just starting to grasp or have aversion and different things. So there are changes in temperament, behavior, physical signs. Venerable Tarpa.
So this on an apple orchard, and right before it is going to die, they only live so long, they do this big many, many, many apples. It's like a big flourishing before they even finally die. So it made me kind of think of that. It's kind of like the last straw.
People do that too.
People do that too, yeah.
No, I mean, and many times when I talk to people, and I told with my father, it's like right before they die, with this burst of energy, and like if they were, they had dementia, suddenly they wake up and they know who.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen that.
Sit up. They've been laying, prone for days on end, and suddenly they sit up, and and then very soon after that.
They have these moments of clarity, and they want to communicate something. Sometimes even people with dementia, it's like they go through these really confused states, and then some significant date occurs, and then either on that date or after, then they're gone. It's interesting. Okay, so let me see what it says here.
You know what, Venerable Kacho, I would think that for those of us who are practicing the Dharma and trying to transform our minds, as we do it longer and get older, I would think that our behavior and our attitude gets a little bit more sweeter and kinder and a little bit more compassionate rather than grouchy and restless and averse to life.
We'll make prayers.
I've actually seen it in the community.
We saw that with Ati.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think that it also goes the other way, where somebody ordinarily good-natured just turns around to be really crabby, and it's because it's like they're sad. A lot of times the anger is masking sadness. So, hopefully we'll just go to the sadness rather than be grouchy. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Stanza 9. Moving along. Maybe we'll get there, huh? Wishing to be able to sustain realization of the profound reality when the internal signs dawn. So let's read this verse together. May we realize the deathless mode of being when various mistaken appearances, frightful and horrible, and in particular mirage, smoke, and fireflies appear, and the mounts of the 80 indicative conceptions seize. Okay, so again, as Holiness says, as we go through this, it's important for us to call on the knowledge, having some awareness of how the collapse of the physical elements that support consciousness corresponds to different physical experiences that we go through. And he says that as each of the four elements dissolve, and they dissolve one by one, their internal signs of death appear. So he says that there are differences that come from our predispositions, our personality, our experience, our karma, things like this. And it's also established by virtuous and non-virtuous actions, and this in previous lives. So, our karma really has an effect on this too. He says that differences signal type and quality of the rebirth about to occur. And he says, kind of like, he says it's kind of like in the early dawn, you can kind of see colors in the sky, and it gives you a sense of what the day's going to be like. So he's saying, so you have these experiences where you see different signals, and it kind of gives you a sense, oh, I'm going to be reborn in a situation like this. So there's one story where there was one lama about to pass away, and he'd been praying and praying and praying to be reborn in the hell realms so that he could really work with others and help others and work on his practice. And then just before he passed, he was kind of disturbed because he saw he was going to go to a really beautiful realm.
Venerable, from your experience, were you able to see, kind of like to pair the external signs with those 8 phases? Or are they already to the point where a person cannot talk, it's all very internal?
Yeah, I believe it's more internal, but you kind of get some of the integrity of the person too. That they're really ready to go, and a lot of people are. Yeah. And again, we have to really check our motivation. I was telling I had an interview yesterday, and sometimes there was one woman who was paraplegic, and she was given 6 months or less to live, and even shorter, and she was so happy, finally liberation from this body that's just been hanging her up all her life. She was so happy. She started calling all her friends, it's like, say prayers, don't come, I'm on my way out, don't worry. And she was going to make it really humorous. She said, I've hung out with handicapped people all my life, and so many funerals are so somber, and I'm going to wear this. She had this really funny hat she wanted put on her. And she was really excited, And I'd see her, and I'm going, wow, I hope I'd have this kind of joy when it's my time, But then I went to see her 2 weeks later, because she thought it was going to be in 2 weeks, and she was so upset. She was going, why hasn't it happened yet? I'm still here. It's such a drag. It's like, why is it taking so long? And so, again, it's really important for us to look at our motivation and what's driving us. Because sometimes it's just aversion for what we're wanting to get out of, So seeing those signs, I believe they're more internal, but you kind of get a sense of people's personalities and how they're kind of accepting things.
One comment, in Ghana, in West Africa, the coffin is like what that person loved in life. So if they loved being in the ocean, they would have a little boat. If they liked, so whatever symbol, so they prepared it before they died, what they loved to do, so they were bright and pretty. So when you said have joy and fun, I thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Ghana. It's one country in West Africa. I think it's Ghana.
I think we're doing some of that here now too. The celebration of the person's life, and then ushering them. It's great. Yeah. Okay, so where were we? Okay. Stanza 9. Wishing to be able to sustain realization. Oh, we read that, right? We read that. Okay, so the second point there, learn the first 3 of the 8 appearances, where earth dissolves into water, etc. So he speaks about the 8 appearances: mirage, like that in the desert, puffs of smoke from a chimney or thin smoke throughout a room. So puffs of smoke from a chimney or thin smoke throughout a room is kind of like the dissolution of the water element into fire. And then the fireflies are, or sparks in the soot on the bottom of a wok. You know, if you're scratching something that's hot and it's ashy, then it starts sending off sparks. So it's like fire dissolving into wind. So these, let me read some of these elements so you have a sense of this. So His Holiness says, in general, the grosser elements dissolve into the subtler elements. So as the capacity of the former element that serves as a support for the consciousness degenerates, then the latter becomes more manifest. So the first 4 are the elements. So phase 1, the earth element degenerates and dissolves into the water element. So the solid aspects of the body, like your bones, are no longer capable to serve as a foundation for your consciousness, supporting your life. So the capacity of the solid aspects to do so dissolves or is transferred into the fluids of your body. For instance, your phlegm and blood, yeah. So now the capacity of the water element to act as a base of consciousness becomes more manifest. So the water element is more strong. And the body becomes thinner and limbs loosen. And I would again prompt, as I was reading and writing these things down from the text, I was thinking how everybody's different. Different things will be stronger, and also depends on your physical constitution and also what your illness is. So you lose physical strength, your vitality and luster of your body radically diminishes, leaving it exhausted. Your sight becomes unclear and dark. You can no longer open and close your eyes. I've seen people open and close their eyes even today. I've seen people talk even on the day that they pass away. So, it's all variable. They said you may have a sense of sinking into the earth. It's like the earth element is gone and you're just kind of dissolving, right? So, and you may call out, "Hold me up." And I've seen that a lot. And you probably have too when you see someone ill, "Hold me up, prop me up," yeah? As they attempt to struggle upward. But His Holiness suggests here it's important not to fight, but to remain calm with a virtuous mind. The dissolving of your earth element, but how do you? It's starting. How do you keep your mind focused? Yeah. He says what you see in your mind starts to look like a mirage. And it's kind of the earth and water. When you see a mirage, the elements are playing tricks on you anyway. It's like the dissolution of your earth element. Okay. Phase 2 of the 8 is the capacity of the water element degenerates and dissolves into the fire element. So the warmth that maintains your body and the fire element's capacity to serve as a basis of your consciousness is enhanced. So now he suggests you no longer experience feelings of pleasure and pain, or even neutral feelings associated with the senses and the mental consciousness. Is your mouth, tongue, and throat dry due to loss of saliva and scum forms on your teeth. Other fluids such as urine, blood, regenerative fluid, and sweat dry up. You can no longer hear sounds, and the usual hum in your ear stops. What you see in your mind look like puffs of smoke or thin smoke throughout a room, or smoke billowing from a chimney. But we often have, it's like these swabs, right? Swabs to just kind of keep someone's mouth, kind of freshen them up a little bit. They can't hardly swallow anymore, but just to keep the mouth kind of a little bit moist. Mm-hmm.
Venerable, can you clarify, as you said before, the earth element is like our bone,
Mm-hmm.
and then the water element is like our blood, phlegm, etc.
Mm-hmm.
What would the fire element be?
This is phase 3, but generally the heat and coolness of your body, your temperature.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that's phase 3, and the capacity of the fire element that generates and dissolves into the wind element. So currents of air or energy that direct various bodily functions such as inhalation, exhalation, burping, spitting, speaking, swallowing, flexing the joints, stretching and contracting the limbs, opening and closing the mouth and eyelids, digestion, urination, defecation, menstruation, and ejaculation. So this is the fire element, which is really helping with also the elements. So warmth of the body diminishes, resulting in an inability to digest food. You see, very often people just stop eating and can't consume any food, and we as caregivers sometimes thinking, eat. The more you eat, you'll bounce back. And we start to force feed when it's just the natural part of the body to slow down. And I would say, that when people have on hospice, they're so tired of the long process of sickness. Sometimes the nurses and even the docs will say to the patients on hospice that one way to speed up the process is to stop eating. And it's very easy and natural to do. People want a shot or give me more drugs. But, it's like just a natural slowing down of the functions. Okay, so here, again, this is perhaps philosophical, perhaps actual, and it's really interesting to consider. If you've conducted your life predominantly without virtue, bodily warmth initially gathers downward, from the top of the head to the heart, from the upper body becoming cold first. And if you've lived your life predominantly virtuously, the warmth gathers from the sole of your feet upward toward the heart, and the lower body becomes colder first. So, again, think of the physical condition or the whatever the illness is. So, if you have cold feet, it doesn't necessarily mean you're virtuous, right? Okay, so here the ability to smell ceases. You can no longer pay attention to activities and wishes of friends and relatives around you, and sometimes you can't even remember your names. And you watch that in hospice or around a sick person or a dying person. We're so upset, it's like, come on, I'm your daughter, or I'm your sister, or your brother, whatever. It's like, he doesn't recognize me anymore. It's like, it's so self-centered, isn't it? It's so so self-centered when we're really trying to assist them. You think when their elements and their sickness and everything's collapsing around them, it's still all about me, right? Why are they getting sick and leaving me holding the bag of cleaning up the basement, right? So to watch, as caregivers, as friends, how do we support the person who's really going through this now, right? Okay. So here in this third phase, you experience difficulty breathing, exhalations become longer, inhalations shorter, and I've seen that with the breathing. The throat emits rattling, they call it like the death rattle, and it emits sounds. And it says what you see in the mind are like fireflies, perhaps inside smoke or sparks on a pan. It's like the fire elements dissolving. So it's really interesting to contemplate, to think how this happens. And I wonder, just as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in the book on Death and Dying was saying, you go through these stages of death. And then later on they're saying, well, it doesn't have to be in that order, that different things can be happening, and they can recur as well. So I wonder if some of these dissolution of the phases might also have different propensities or powers too, and not always in that particular sequence. Again, there's so many causes and conditions for what's going on with you. The strength of your mind, or the sickness in a particular part of your body, or where your breath is really compromised, or your heart is compromised. So I would say that these two could be somewhat fluid, is my guess. But they might throw me out of the college there.
Just a quick question. I don't know why I'm caught up on this, but on number 2 at the end it says the candles at first flickering and then steady. I always imagine that the candle goes out. The candle just stays.
Yeah, it does go out.
I thought it, when reading the book, that it almost goes out and then it turns into the white light. Well, I'd have to check again because it's the consciousness.
Yeah, the solution. Because these are the 4 physical elements, and then it goes into the 4 mental elements. So, yeah. And then these are not physical things, these are kind of internal signs.
Yeah.
They're internal signs. So, your light might stay on, might go off. I think I think every, but to be familiar with what's going on, and, when we're actually going through it and going, this is happening. This is happening. So rather than freaking out, we're going, okay, here's, like His Holiness was saying, this kind of some excitement. Can we hang in there as we go through this? Mm-hmm.
Are there any times in our life before we're dying that some of these dissolutions might happen a little bit different since if we're sick? And if so, could we use that to kind of practice? Like, this might be similar to what it might be like for the earth element to dissolve into water, and so let me use it right now as kind of...
I think so, because they were saying earlier, it happens when you sneeze, when you're falling asleep, dreaming, when you're reach orgasm.
These dissolutions happen during those?
Mm-hmm. Both the forward order and the reverse order. Forward order as it's coming on, and then at the ending of it in the reverse order. So yeah, the developing. So I think sickness is a good place to observe that too.
I think a good place. Well, it depends on your mind, but for me, it helps to think about these elements in terms of the how the brain supports the mind. And so the solution, think of it in the brain processes and how they dissolve as the person's dying. And you know how it,
Yeah.
and it seems to me, just from things I've read about how the brain works and how it supports the mind, that these are all processes that happen in there. And the other thing that I've started doing, instead of saying the elements in terms of earth, wind, fire, water, just think of them as solid, fluid, exothermic energy, and kinetic energy. Just because of having a Western mind, and trying to get around the thinking about them as medieval concepts that are no longer valid, but thinking them in terms that I'm more accepting as a 21st century person.
Yeah, that's possible. I think that's a valid point. But in the dying state, we might see flickering something. But our capacity to say that those are exoteric, whatever, may not be. We might just see sparks or something. So I think to say, well, that's medieval. I think we still have these visual.
Absolutely. I think there's different ways people can have of bringing them into their, rather than just book learning, and that's something that's worked for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I need to finish in 10 minutes. So, okay. So, where did we go? Okay, so, yeah. Let's read 10. So, wishing to generate a strong mindfulness of former virtuous endeavor when gross dualistic appearance dissolves. So we'll read that together. May we generate strong mindfulness and introspection when the wind constituent begins to dissolve into consciousness and the external continuum of breath ceases. Coarse dualistic appearances dissolve and an appearance like a burning butter lamp dawns. So although mind and matter have different substantial causes, they interact in many ways. After the three internal signs of mirage, smoke, and fireflies comes the fourth internal sign, which is like the flame of a butter lamp or of a candle, at first flickering and then steady. Although at this point the outer breath through the nose ceases and there is no conscious reaction to external stimuli, the person has not died. It is helpful if the body is not disturbed until full death comes. Maintaining mindfulness and introspection that help you recognize which phase of the internal process is occurring can impel powerful realization and influence a positive rebirth. Can you see why when you're really going through these, it's important not to disturb the body, especially, touching them and whining and crying and wishing that they stay, So for us as yogis, it might be really important to let people know if we take this as a serious practice. I think for ordinary beings who this is not a practice, still, it's like you're leaving and moving on. But in hospice again, it's not for me to impose my stuff on the family when, they're seeing me for the first time and their loved one is passing away. Don't touch, right? Out of here. I'd be like, really, that'd be my neck. So.
Real quick, at the time of passing, have you noticed any difference in the sexes and how it occurs with them?
No. I have a big question here from His Holiness. What is the life force that keeps the body from rotting? What is life force?
It's spirit.
Hmm? Interdependence of the elements? Okay.
Would it be our mind stream? Because the body is trash. And yet there are instances where masters and teachers, the body has been there for days and days and days and days and not rotted. So it must have something to do with the mind stream consciousness.
Bingo. You win.
It's the consciousness.
Yep. As Olena says, it's your mind that keeps your body from rotting. It's so curious. I mean, I asked an acupuncture this, and she was saying, so it's kind of like it's kind of like what you were saying, Tanya. It's like the electrical connections and firing in the brain and stuff. But as Olena says, it's the mind.
Is it the state of mind or any mind?
It's the subtle mind. And here, number 3, although at this point the outer breath through the nose ceases and there's no conscious reaction to the external stimuli, right? That's where the nurses and the docs and the official people say you're dead, right? Miss Helena says the person has not died. Which is why, again, it's important not to touch, it's like the consciousness is slowly shifting and like rocking what's just happened, in these phases. So yeah, like you say, the interdependence, it's like this slow transition or fast transition, and the dissolution of the elements, and then the dissolution of consciousness to this subtle, clear light energy, right? Mm-hmm.
Does you ever talk about plants anywhere? Plants don't rot, but they don't have any consciousness. This is where this thinking, but they don't rot until they're dead, but they don't have any consciousness, and I cannot...
Well, there's chlorophyll and water and sunlight and...
Right, so I guess the question for me comes up is why can't we explain animal life the same way? Why do we need consciousness to explain why the body doesn't rot?
Animal life is explained the same way, but plant life isn't.
No, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of people now. Things without a mind that don't rot, or that we're saying that the body doesn't rot because there's consciousness. But a plant lives without rotting, without consciousness. And I'm just wondering if there's anywhere that this is ever talked about.
There's a lot of things that decompose in our universe that aren't plants.
Everything's decomposing. Yeah.
Maybe I'm not making myself clear.
I think that there is a lot of discussion about it, and there are schools of thought that are not Buddhist that really respect, phenomena and plants and the elements. And even, I think, Thich Nhat Hanh. Yeah. And, there is huge virtue in that respect, but it's a different philosophical view about consciousness and where it resides. Venerable Tarpa.
In the Polycanon, they separate out life force from consciousness. So I kind of think of this in terms of the consciousness. We always think of the body as supporting the consciousness, but I think the consciousness is also supporting the body, and somehow that interaction allows for or there's a relationship with the life force. So for me, plants have a life force that grows when it's not sustained, I suppose. I'm just thinking of it that way.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, what we've been going through is according to Highest Yoga Tantra, and His Holiness says that. So I think it's wonderful to be able to really explore and examine, which is why His Holiness has the Mind and Life conferences and working with the scientists and doctors and the more you engage in those things, the sharper or more clarity you get on your own perspectives. Yeah, it's great.
Just on a practical level, if this is the point at which doctors would declare someone dead, but the son of mind may not have left the body, how would one know when it has left the body? If you have the good fortune to be able to leave the body there or lay there for 3 days, how would one know that it's okay to touch the body and move the body? Are there any signs or...
I believe there are signs, and generally different people can understand them better. Some of our lamas and different people, but as I think we mentioned a couple times in here, also this weekend, how when you're with someone who's just died, it seems like there's still a presence there. That it's not totally gone. That even though the vital signs, and they're considered physically dead, there's still some energy there. So, and last week I was with a man, and he really seemed like he was still there, and his wife, they'd been married 68 years. And just sitting with the wife, who was pretty much deaf, the poignancy of just being with them in that moment, where she can't hear and her husband's just lying there. It's just so profound to, the time, the life, spending your whole life with that person is really something. So, yeah.
Perhaps Venerable said that we need to watch for certain signs before we move them. And she wanted us to see if the body was getting vision, and also happen to see if anything came out of their nose. Things like that. I think it was blood coming out of the nose.
Yeah.
So if we don't have access to a lama, let's say we're ushering someone with the death process, and we don't have access to a lama who can tell us when it's okay to move them, would you think the 3-day rule is...
I think the 3-day rule might be too long, generally. But 3 days is generally for someone who's, can hang in there. So, yeah. And oftentimes, hospitals, you can't keep somebody in there for 3 days. You might be able to keep them in there for a few hours. So when they die at home, you may be able to keep them for an evening or something.
When the body starts to smell.
But when the body starts to smell, I think rigor mortis is one, as you were saying, and also the fluids exiting the body. And what?
Touching the body.
No, I think that...
We didn't say that earlier.
That's a physical.
Oh.
Yeah, that there's no response here, number 3, when there's no conscious reaction to any external stimuli. Okay, so here's another question or comment. His Holiness says, consciousness shapes matter. Since it is our actions or karma that are motivated by consciousness that structure the environment. And you think about it, what you perceive through your senses is really your karma, right? It's really your karma. That we see such a beautiful space. Yeah. Someone else may say, "Get me out of here. Take me back to Manhattan," or something, right? Or Mumbai, right? It says the pooled influence of karmas of beings shape the world system that we inhabit. So again, just flashing back to Saturday's thing where I was trying to incorporate all these other things, our economy, the pollution, the way we divert rivers and the salmon can't get uphill anymore. We're manipulating our environment out of our wishes to do, and our attachment, lust, greed, hatred, etc. Right? Okay, so it's now 10:18, Venerable. So I am sorry we didn't get on further, but I really didn't have the actual intention to complete the text because of my lack of real familiarity with it. And I hope that you can find someone who can really share that with you, and if you do, let me know, because I would also really like to study it more. This is a field that is bringing me a lot more interest.